Hello everyone. Hope you all are safe and doing well. Excellent Excel welcomes you all. We are back with a new fresh talk this weekend. Thank you all for enrolling in this event. We welcome you all. I also welcome Mr. Chandeep Chhabra who will be addressing us in the next few moments. Let me give a gist of Excel in Excel. Excel in Excel is a data analytics firm that solves high impact business problems using data and technology. We provide end to end services in the field of data analytics and data visualization. Our core services include analytics, consulting, and training. Excel and Excel presents the popular talk show EiEFreshTalk on its YouTube channel, where it hosts great leaders and subject matter experts in various fields from India and abroad to speak regularly on a variety of topics ranging from Excel to analytics and finance to financial modeling. Few of our past events are by CAS Ratnagiri on time intelligence in Power BI and Mr. Amit Chandak on analyzing data with Power BI. Coming to today's session. Our today's session is on 10 common DAX problems and solutions in Power BI by Mr. Chandeep Chhabra. Mr. Chandeep, the founder of Goodly.co.in, is an Excel and Power BI expert and has been training, consulting, and blogging to help people become quicker and smarter with these useful tools since 2013. For about 4 years, he worked for an investment bank, helping startups raise capital. This is where he came to use Excel extensively for his task. He then decided to move to self employment, and that is how Goodly was born at the end of 2013 when he left his full time job and started training people in Excel, modeling, and creating PowerPoint presentations. He conducts training programs for many top companies on Excel and Power BI. As a consultant, he helps companies automate their complex business reports. He is an avid blogger and uses this time available after his training and consulting work to blog about the learnings he had from his key activities. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Before we begin, I would request the participants to join me in welcoming today's speaker with a hi in the chat section. For any questions or comments, kindly use the comment section. We will present it to the speaker. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Nidhi, for the kind introduction, and of course having me on your talk show here. Um, I'm just hoping that everybody can see me. You can also hear me loud and clear. Uh,
Yes.
okay, great. So maybe I'll just quickly switch over to the screen. I've got some presentation here, not too much, just about one slide here. And I'll just start sharing my screen right here. Excuse me. How do I do that? Share the screen, and share the screen. Okay. I hope you guys can take a look at the presentation. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, my name is Chandeep. I currently stay in the city called Gurgaon, which is close to New Delhi, capital of India. And I do a lot of blogging, consulting, training work for some companies in India, essentially in India. And currently I'm in my bedroom doing this session for you guys, so you can actually take a look at this thing. And surprisingly, it's the first time I'm actually trying out streaming from my phone to the camera right here. So I hope the video is better than my usual camera on the laptop. So yeah, that's about me. So and of course I've been blogging. So if you want to go check out my blog, certainly you can just go type in Goodly on Google, or you can just type goodly.co.in. A lot of people mishear this as Googly, but it's not Googly. It's actually Goodly. And of course, people do ask me, "Hey, why did you keep the name Goodly? It's a weird name." And I have also got the reason on the blog, so you can just find around that, and you can just take a look at that. These days, I'm essentially doing a lot of blogging, some bit of consulting as well on DAX and Power BI. are the latest tools that I've actually fallen in love with. It's brilliant. The level of sophistication in terms of calculation that you can actually achieve in DAX is phenomenal, which I think it's very, very hard to do it in Excel, things that you can actually do it in DAX. And this section is actually about 10 common problems that a lot of people face while they're trying to do some calculations in Excel and of course in Power BI. And from this section, I expect that none of you is actually a beginner in DAX. Everybody knows what DAX is. You have worked with Power BI before. And so I'm not going to be actually taking you from the scratch and teaching you every single thing that DAX has to offer, relationships and the measures and stuff. I'll actually talk about 10 specific problems that you could face in case you're already building models in Excel. These are pretty common problems and effective ways to actually solve these problems. So DAX calculations, measures, and what actually can you do to solve these problems out. And I'll just quickly get started because I have 10 problems here and I don't think that we'll be done in 1 hour. I'll try to do that, all of these problems in about 1 hour, and then we can jump on to any questions that you have. But let's just see how this goes. So, and of course, if you would like to follow along and maybe do it side by side and take a look at the data and the model that I'm working on, I have given the link to Nidhi, and hopefully she has pasted that in the description of the video somewhere, or maybe in the chat comments. And you can just go there and download the data and then just follow along. All right, I'll just jump over to a Power BI file, and which is where I'll maybe explain you the data model. So it's a pretty standard data model here that I have got here. There's a sales table here. The sales table has two dimensions, two dimension tables, products table and the calendar table. And the product table is linked with the sales table using the product key, which is a one-to-many relationship. And the calendar table is linked to the sales table, which is using the order date. So I typically call the date table as a calendar table, but in case you want to rename it to a calendar table or a date table, you can actually do that. So that's how the relationships are set up. In case you want to take a look at the columns here, it's a pretty standard columns that we have here. So we have the product key, order date, due date, ship date, the sales order number, the quantity ordered, the price amount, and the customer key here. And in the products table, we have standard dimensions here. So the key, the name of the product, the color, model name, subcategory, and the category of the products. And the calendar table, like you would expect, I'd have a date, I'd have a month, I'd have a quarter, and I'd have a year. So that's a pretty standard calendar table. All right, and of course, I have also actually created a measure. So I'll just maybe put this on the side. I've actually created a measure, which is called total sales right here. And you can see that measure. That measure is nothing but a simple sum calculation of the amount column. So that's what it says. And I've actually dragged that measure to my table here, the pivot table here, and I can actually get to see my sales happening month on month right here. Okay, so the first problem is that a lot of people who actually are working in a country where they do not follow the standard calendar year come up to me and they ask me, hey, can you just maybe do the calculation by fiscal year? That means I'd like to kind of start the calculation from a particular month from where we begin our fiscal year and then carry it out through the end of the month. So if you just take the case of India, the way we do it in India is that we start with April and we end in March. And the way we write the fiscal year is not 2019 or 2020. The way we write it is 19-20, 21-22, and sort of that stuff. So let's just see if we can make that happen in Power BI. So I'm actually going to go over to my calendar table. Now, remember that whenever you're trying to do a different representation by a fiscal year or by a fiscal month or a fiscal quarter, you actually need a date table that can give you those dimensions. You don't need to make any changes, significant changes to your calculations. So in my calendar table, actually, and I've already created a pretty standard calendar table, but this calendar table as of now is for the calendar year, not for the fiscal year. And I'm going to make some standard changes to this calendar table to accommodate for any financial year calculations. And specifically, I'll make two addition of columns. Column number one is I'll add the correct quarter. So the way we have the quarters represented in the country is that April, May, June falls in the first quarter, and Jan, Feb, March actually falls in the second quarter. That's the way that we do it. All right, so what we do here is I actually right click and I actually create a new column, and I write the quarter here. So I write QTR, and let's just call this as fiscal quarter. And the way that I do it is, maybe I'll just hop over to Excel and I'll help you understand as to what's the logic for deriving to the fiscal quarter. Remember that I need 4 categorization: Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, but the Q1 should actually start with April, May, June, and the Q4 should actually end with Jan, Feb, March of the next year. So just take a look at how do we actually do that. So I'm just going to maybe open up a blank Excel file and maybe just do it right here. So I just write the months right here. So I'm just writing the month number, not the actual month. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So this logic that I'm explaining to you, it can actually also be replicated to Excel, right? That's also we can do. So I have the months here, and these 3 months, I would like to call this as Q4 actually. And these 3 months, I'd like to call this as Q1. And then the next 3 months are Q2, and the next 3 months are Q3. All right. And this is what I want this to be automated in Power BI, not in Excel. This is just a explanation that I'm trying to make here. So what I will do is I will actually push the date 3 months prior, because if you take a look at the way that we kind of divide our quarters is that we start 3 months later. That means our first quarter actually is in April, not in the month of January. So I'll take the dates 3 months prior. So let's just start with any date. So I'll maybe start with today's date. It's the September date. And I'll just take this date to 3 months prior. So I'll just maybe write an EDate function, and I'll take this date and I'll just maybe do a -3. This gives me a date which is 3 months prior. So it gives me a June date. Then I find the month number of that date. I close that. I press enter. I get the month number is 6. And I do a ceiling function because the month number can also be 7. The month number can also be 8. And using the ceiling function, I will push the month number to a multiplier of 3. Why do I push it by the multiplier of 3? Because in one single quarter, you would have 3 months. So I'd use the ceiling function and I'll say, hey, 6 is my number and my multiplier is 3. You will get 6 again because 6 itself is a multiple of 3. And you can actually divide 6 by 3, actually not 2, by 3. And this actually gives you 2. And 2 is nothing but the quarter. So if you take a look at September, in India, September is actually the second quarter of the fiscal year. So this is the little work that we end up doing in Excel, in Power BI, and we create a column. So just maybe take a look here. All right, so we start here. We don't work with the July date here. We actually work with the date which is 3 months prior. So like I said, I'm just going to write maybe an EDate function. So I write an EDate function. It's available in Power BI as well. And EDate actually asks you the first input as date. So I'll say, hey, calendar date is my date, and take it to 3 months prior. So as of now, if you have a July date as an output, you'd get the 3 months prior date, which is going to be an April date, right? Now, I find the month number of the 3 months prior date. So that's what I just find, the month number of the 3 months prior date. And the month number of April is going to be 4, right? And I push this to the multiplier of 3. So I'll just write a ceiling function. And I'll just say that, hey, this is a multiple of 3. Now, when 4 is pushed to the next multiple of 3, you will actually get 6, right? And you get actually a 6 here. And you can actually divide this by 3 to get the correct quarter. So now July happens to be Q2, and that's what you will end up getting. And I just write a little prefix Q at the start, and that's what you get. So I get actually Q2. 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. And then I just prefix that with the Q, and that is what I get. So that's a little formula that you can actually apply it in Excel as well to get the fiscal quarter correctly. So that's one. All right. Once we get this, we have the correct fiscal quarter. Now let's just get the months, the fiscal year as well. So I'm just going to right click here and then maybe just make a new column and just call this the second column as financial year. All right, so financial year. And let's just see, what do we do here? So I'm just going to actually just go a little faster. So I'll just maybe declare a variable and I'll say current year. So the way we do it is that, maybe I'll explain the logic in 2 minutes and then I'll build up the formula. So the way we do it is that after April, I am just going to skip over to the next year, right? So if I am in 2001, the way I would write after April is 1 and 2. And before April, I just write the previous year and the current year. That's what I will do. So I'll just declare a quick variable, and I will say my current year is going to be my year, which I have already calculated. You can just take a look at that. This is the year. But we just write the abbreviated format, so 01-02, that's what we write. So I'm just going to extract the right 2 characters of the year. And then I'll declare another variable, which is called the next year. So I'll just add 1 to the calendar year and maybe just extract the right 2 again. And I'll just do it again. And I'll just say, hey, previous year. So previous year. And again, write. And this time I'm just going to say -1 from the year, right? Now, let's just build the return statement. And I'm just going to say if the month, which again, what I have built already, if the month is greater than 3, that means you are past March and you are in the month of April or greater months, then the way that I want it is that I want the current year and a little dash in between, and I want the next year. So next year. And if this condition is not true, then I want the last year. Let me just zoom out. What's the variable that I have declared here? Previous year. So previous year and dash and the current year. And the current year, right? And I'm just going to close the bracket, press enter. Let's just see what we get here. This shows me an error. Let's just figure out why is there an error. Okay, does not support the text. It should be working actually. One second. So let's just maybe debug this real quick. So I'm just going to call the current variable current year. Let's just see if we get that or not. So we get 0, 1. That's working fine. And next year and Y. That's also working fine. And previous year. That's also working fine. So probably. Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry about that. So the mistake that I've been making is that I'm actually trying to check the condition with the calendar month. And if you take a look at the month is actually the literal text. It's JUL, July. I actually have to check it with the index, or maybe I can just write the month function here. So I'm just going to write the month function here of the calendar date. So I extract the month of the date, and then I check it, and hopefully this should work fine now. And you can see that we have the correct fiscal year. Now, what you can actually do is you can go back to your data and remove that year and the month from here and get your fiscal year right here into rows, and get your quarter also into rows. And now this is the presentation like you would expect. So I think that you have to just sort it. Okay. There doesn't seem to be data for this month. Let's just take a look. And let's just also drag the month, and we'll just get to verify this. Okay. All right. So there doesn't seem to be data for Q2 in 1 and 2. And that's the reason why we don't get to see here. But if you just take a look, it still shows. Oh, sorry about that. This is the correct wrong quarter. We actually have to pick up the fiscal quarter that we actually created. Okay, this should work fine. Okay, now it's fine. So you can see that it goes up until the month of March. And if you take a look at the full financial year, it starts with April, and then it just goes on until the month of March. And the quarters have been assigned correctly to the correct month. So that's working. So the point that I was trying to make is that you need 2 columns, 2 or 3 columns in your date table, which can actually give you the correct fiscal year and the quarter to be able to get the financial year data. All right. So that's that. Now let's just, and of course, there is a link here. If you just want to follow along, what I've done is on this link is that I have given you the full calendar table so that you don't actually have to create the calendar table. There are all the columns that you need. Both the calendar year columns and the fiscal year columns are there. So on this link, you will actually find a code, a DAX code that you can actually copy and paste it into your um, calendar table. And this will create all the columns that you need, and you can just drag and drop and start using them. All right, let's just proceed. The next problem that a lot of people face is that they often need the YTD calculation, which is one of the time intelligent calculations, displayed by the financial year. That means you would like to display this by the financial year. The calculation should actually start in April doing the YTD, and then it should actually end in March. So let's just see how do we do that. So if you don't know it already, the total YTD formula in DAX, so I'll just create a new measure. And the total YTD formula, so I'm just going to call this as sales YTD. And I'm just going to write the total YTD here. So the total YTD formula actually asks you that, hey, you want the YTD for which calculation? So I want the YTD to be done on total sales. Then it actually asks you for a date. Where are your dates? And I already have a date table, which is my calendar date. And then it actually asks you for the year end date. You can see that it's actually asking you for an year end date. If you specify the year end date as that my year actually ends in the month of March, it will actually start to do the YTD every year from April to March. So that's what you can actually do. And you can just write in the inverted commas 331, 3/31, and it kind of picks it up. You can also write 31/3. Both will work absolutely fine. So this understands both these ways of writing it. Once you do that, and you actually drag this calculation. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to place the calendar year in my pivot table. So I place the calendar year, and you will find that my calculation is actually running through the next year until April, the YTD totals. So I'm actually going to do the YTD here, sales YTD. And let's just take a look. Okay, so if you take a look, since we have data starting with July, it starts with July. That's the number that you end up seeing here. It goes on, and it goes and stops in the month of March. And then it resets itself to the month of April, and then goes on. And then again, it would not stop at December. It would actually stop at the month of March, and then reset back again to the month of April. So if I had put in the financial year and the months in that particular order, this would have worked absolutely fine. So I just wanted to show you that actually it spills over to the next 3 months, because in the total YTD function, we have specified that our financial year actually ends in March. So that's a little trick that you can actually follow, especially when you're doing financial year YTD calculations, to mention that when does your fiscal year end. Okay. All right. Let's just take a look at trick number 3. Okay. Now, let's just say, let me kind of build the case here. So let's just say that we have this products table. And in the products table, I'm going to ask you a question that, hey, can you tell me the number of unique models sold? So we have models here. How many unique models are sold every single quarter? So that's what I can see here. But if you think that you can actually write the distinct count function and then drag it to the pivot table, it would not work. So just take a look here. So if I just write unique models, and I write the distinct count function, I'm actually writing it on the products table, and on the model name column, close the bracket, press enter. And I just drag that to the pivot table, and I hope that this is going to work. It actually gives me 119 throughout the visual here. Now the thing is that the filters, the way that they propagate is that the filters can actually propagate from the products table to the sales table, but they actually cannot go reverse right? So it can actually not go reverse here. And obviously there is no relationship between the calendar against which we are taking a look at, which is the year and the quarter, and of course the products table. So unless I actually figure out a way to slice the products table or to carry forward the filter from the sales table, this calculation will not happen. So whenever you actually want to do a calculation which is based on the lookup table, and you actually want that calculation to run, you can actually wrap that calculation in around the calculate function. So if I just wrap this calculation in around the calculate function, and in the filter expression, if I just write the entire sales table, the meaning of this measure is that, hey, give me all the unique models sold which are actually present in the sales table. I mean, the models which have actually been sold. So what this is actually going to do is this is actually going to refer to the sales table. And this will start working, and this will actually start to refer to the sales table, and then go take a look at each and every product ID that has been linked with the products, the sales table and the products table, and then see that if that is the model which is mentioned right here, and then find the unique from that. So that's a pretty nifty way of doing it. In case you want to do any calculation based on the lookup table, and you actually want to kind of drive that calculation, and you want to take a look at how many transactions have actually been taken place in my transactions table, you can actually follow this pattern and you can actually make use of that. Even if you actually write, the other way of sort of manually solving it is I actually come to my sales table and I right click here and I just maybe make a new column. And in the new column, I just write a related function. So I'm just going to call this as a model name. And I'm just going to write the related function, which is nothing but a VLOOKUP. And I'm just going to call all the models that have been sold from the products table. I close that, I press enter. This is my model name column. And now of this column, I can actually find a unique. So if I just drag this column, model name column, to my pivot table, and I summarize the calculation as unique, and I summarize the calculation as unique, distinct count, you can see that I actually get the same numbers in both the calculations. But I actually do not have to actually create a column if I actually follow the pattern that I have given to you just now. So this column is actually not needed. I will let it be there so you can take a look at it, but this column is not needed. Okay. Point number 4, or the problem number 4. This is perhaps one of my favorite problems. So what happens is that if you're working with unstructured data, or if you're working with like a data set, and you perhaps do not have a lookup table for that, so let me just explain to you. Okay, so here for now we have the lookup table, which is our products table, correct? And the sales table is our transactions table, which is where every single transaction or every single time when you sold a product is mentioned in every single row here. Now, if I ask you a question that, let me just take a look at the question. Oh, okay. So what is the sales value of a single SKU that was sold the most in every single quarter? I repeat myself once again. So what is the sales value of one single SKU that had the maximum sales in any quarter? So if I actually go here and I try to explain to you what I'm trying to get here, I'll just copy paste the pivot table right here. And I'll actually get the products here. So products, and I get maybe the, I asked you about the product key. So I just get the product. I think the product name is also unique. So let's just get the product name. So that's the name of the product. And I expand that. And next to that, I drag my total sales. All right. And I'm actually going to sort this in the descending order, so I get the maximum sales on the top. All right. So here is what my question says. My question says that in the year of 2003, in quarter 4, which of these products had the maximum sales value? And you can see that the maximum sales value belonged to the product which is Mountain 200 Black 42. And that's the number that I'd like to see against quarter 1. That means I don't really want to see the full sales value. If I just drag my total sales right here, I do not want to see the entire sales value, but I want to see what's the sale value of one single product that has the winning sales in that entire quarter. That means this number should actually come here. Now, the problem is sometimes you do not get the master table. If you have the master table, this is a very easy problem to solve. But what if you do not have the master table or the lookup table? So if you just take a look at this table, let's just say that we don't have it. And at times that happens that in an unstructured data environment, you do not get the master tables. Certainly you can create them, but let's just say that for some reason you do not have it as of now and you still want to do it. How would you do that? A lot of people who know a slight bit of DAX will come up with this solution. So they'll just actually create a measure, and they'll write a measure something like max product sales, and they'll write something like a max X, go in every single row of the sales table, calculate total sales, and give me the value, press enter. Now, if you think about it, this measure is not correct because you're actually saying that, hey, go in every single row of the sales table, and in every single row of the sales table, calculate total sales, and then find the max of that. Now, there is something called as granularity. Granularity simply means that what is the meaning of one single row of a table? So if you actually take a look at the sales table, one single row of the sales table actually means one single transaction that happened. So when you're doing the calculation for total sales, it will just go transaction by transaction by transaction by transaction. And it will not go product by product. So if I actually drag this measure to my pivot table, what you will get is the value of the maximum transaction. You will not get the value of the maximum product. What you actually want to do is you actually want to find out in Q4, list down all the products which are unique, find out the total sales for every single product, and then list down the sales of the maximum product. So you don't really want to go in every single row of the sales table. You actually want to go in every single row of the summarized products table, but you don't have it. So what I can do here is, let's just say that I don't have the products table. I can actually do a little values function, and I just maybe mention the product name here. What this is going to do is this values function, it will sort of remove the duplicates. So it will go in this filter context. Let me just explain to you and you'll understand better. So it will actually go in this filter context, 2004 Q1. And in Q1, it will make a list of unique products, which are non-duplicated. So something like this. And once it makes a list of unique products, it will calculate total sales against each and every one of them, and then find the max of that. So the only change that I had to make in my measure was this little values function right here. So values function is very, very similar to remove duplicates in Excel, right? So I removed the duplicates from the product, and by mistake, I've used the products table here. I actually should use the sales and the product key here and press enter. I was assuming that I do not have the products table. Now let's just go test the results. Are these results correct or not? So let's just go take a look at 2003 Q4. So 2003 Q4, and you can see that the sale is 247,858, and that's the number that you actually see it here for the Mountain Black product. So what you can do is using the values function or the summarize function, you can actually move the granularity of your sales table up, calculate something, and then drive the results here. It's a pretty nifty way of doing such things, max, min, sort of that stuff. Okay, let's just proceed ahead. Now, when I actually show people this calculation and I tell them that, hey, why don't you take a look at this pivot table? This pivot table says that let me just sort it. This pivot table says that in 2001, in Q3, we had this much sale, 1453,523, but one single product got you $279,000 of sales value. Now, the second question that most people are going to ask me is that, hey, which product is it? Can you just give me the name of that product? Like, I actually want to see the name of this product. And that is when you actually would need a products table or the master table or the lookup table, which is where one of the columns is going to be the name of the product. So let's just go tackle that problem. Now, until now, what we have done so far is that we have done calculations that deliver us a number, and we have not done any calculation that actually gives us a text value, right? So I want to build a calculation that actually gives me a text value. That's what I want to do. So some won't do it, or an average won't do it. So I need to find a function in DAX that has the ability to process the calculation, do a max, and then still give me the max text value. Like, what is the name of the product that stood first? So I actually want to get the name of the product, which is nothing but the text value. So this is interesting. Please take a look. So what I'm going to do is, so far, I'm actually going to drag the two measures that I created, which is my total sales right here and my max product sales right here. Now, next to this calculation, I actually want to find the name of the product, that which is that winning product that delivered this sale value. So how do I actually do that? So let's just create a new measure, and let's just try to figure that out. So I'm just going to call this measure as max product sales. Let's just say max product, or let's just say best product. Call this top product. I don't know. So call this something. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a small table. The table will have only the winning product, and then I will grab the name of that, the product name from that particular table. But remember that the product should only have the winning product, and then I can just grab that name. So I can actually use a top n function. So I'll say top n, and I'll say, hey, how many top values do you want? So I just want one top value from the products table, and I'll say I want it on the basis of total sales, and I close that bracket. Now this is actually going to give me a full table, a table that is going to have one single row of the product where the total sales was the highest. That is what it's going to give me. And if you kind of start pressing enter, this is not going to work, because this will actually give you a table. And in a measure, you cannot really have a table. So you have to kind of trim down the calculations so that it gives you a single scalar value. All right. So that's what I do. So, and I just create this little variable here, and I say that, hey, this is my top table. All right, that's what I do. All right, let's just now do a return, and I'll say concatenate X. That means I want to actually go in this table, which has just one single row, and I want to concatenate the name of the product. So I'll say concatenate X, go in every single row of the top table that I just created. And inside of that table, I actually want to find the name of that product. So this has the name of the product right here. And the delimiter is going to be an enter. That means in case any single product has a clash, or like it's two products are clashing for the same position, both have the same sales value, so both become the top products. So in case this table gets two values, then I want to show the first product, then I want to kind of put an enter, and then I want to show the next product. So the delimiter between the two products is going to be an enter. And you can see that right now it's actually asking me for a delimiter. So I can actually press a delimiter as unicharacter 10. Unicharacter 10 simply means an enter. And order by expression is total sales in the descending order. That means that the best selling product comes first, the second best selling product comes after that, and so on and so forth. Close that bracket. This is this is going to be helpful, especially when you have, let's say, top 2 products or top 3 products. I think this should work actually. So let's just kind of commit to this formula, and let's just see if this formula works or not. All right, so you can see that it starts to work. And let's just go also test it out. So in 2004, in Q1, let's just take a look at, maybe, I think this is a long list. So you can see that the reason why you're getting a lot of these products, because we don't have the data for 2004 in Q4. And because we don't have the data in 2004, every product has the sales value as 0. Hence, every single product is the top product. Hence, you get the name of all the products. So what I would like to do is, I'd like to stop this calculation to only the rows which actually have total sales value. So what I'll do is I'll maybe modify my calculation a little bit, and I'll say that filter, that means go in every single row of this table, and then your total sales value should actually not be equal to a blank. It should actually give you some value, right? That's what I do. And I kind of commit to that, and hopefully this should actually work just fine. And now what we get here is actually the name of the product, which was the winning product in that quarter. So you have the total sales, you have the best selling product sales value, and you also have the name of that product. So this is pretty amazing. Let's just maybe go take a look at if we are correct here or not. So in 2003 Q4, Mountain Black 242 was the winning product. Let's just go take a look at if we actually get that product or not. 2003 Q4. So 2003 Q4, that's the name of the product, and that's the sale value, which is absolutely correct. So that's working fine. Let's just kind of move ahead to the next question. And of course, in case now there are a lot of combinations and patterns possible with top products. People can start asking you weird questions, not weird questions, actually good questions like, hey, give me top 3 products. Hey, once you give me top 3 products, I also want to see the name of the product and the sales value of the product, and a whole lot of questions like that. And I have actually written a very interesting article on that, and the link of that is right here at the bottom. Top selling product analysis in Power Pivot. And this actually takes you through a simple level up to a level where you can start doing a lot of analysis on top selling products, get the names of the products, get the sales value of the product, and a whole lot of things. So you should actually check this article out. All right, let's just move ahead to the next question. So a lot of people also ask me is that, hey, is there a way that I can actually do an Excel-like COUNTIF in Power BI? I really want to do a COUNTIF, and I want to do it in Power BI. And I often refer them to the visual. So let's just say that maybe I create a pivot table right here. And in the pivot table, I have the year placed right here. And I maybe drag the, or let's just say that I drag the order number. Do we have an order number? Sales order number right here in the value section. And I just say that, hey, summarize this to a count. And I see that this is actually a COUNTIF. So you are actually seeing how many orders are there in year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. They say that, hey, this is not what I'm looking at. I already know this is a pretty standard pivot table and I can do that. What they actually want to do is they actually want to do a COUNTIF in the table to maybe just take a look at, are there any duplicated values or not in the lookup table. So let's just see how can you do that. But once you actually do that calculation, you should also turn it off and not let that column stay active in the data model. It's just for trying and testing it out. You can actually do that calculation in Power BI. So let's just take a look. So I'm actually going to go to my products table. I'm actually going to do the calculation that if the product key is duplicated or not. So I want to actually take a look that the product key is being duplicated or not duplicated in Power BI. That's what I want to take a look at. And how do I do that? And obviously, if the product key is not duplicated, so across the entire column, I'm going to get 1. That means the product key is going to be 1. But let's just see that. How do we actually do that? So I'm just going to make a new column. And I'm just going to call this as COUNTIF on product key. Let's just do it on color, actually. So we'll just take a look at how many products are black, or maybe the model name. And then you will actually get to see that how many model names are appearing in the products table. Okay. So the way we do a COUNTIF is something like this. So I'll say that, hey, why don't you filter the entire products table? There is no COUNTIF function in Power BI. So I say, hey, why don't you filter the entire products table? And that means go in every single row of the products table. And in every single row, why don't you take a look at the model name and then compare it with the entire column, that do you find that model name once again in the entire column or not? So I'm just going to say, hey, model name is equals to the earlier. Earlier simply means current row. If you would like to understand earlier in a little more of depth, I have a video on that. You can just take a look at that. So model name, and I'm just going to close the bracket. Now filter function again is going to give you a table, but I'm not interested in a full table. I just want to count the number of rows there are in the table. And that is nothing but your simple COUNTIF pattern. Just close that, press enter. And what I'm going to get now is a count. That means Mountain Black 100 is exactly mentioned 8 times in the products table. Just go take a look. So I apply a filter. Write 100 here, just to take a look at Mountain 100. And I get 8 rows. Let's just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the value that I get. That's your COUNTIF in case you would like to do a COUNTIF in Power BI. That's the way to do it. And one recommendation, obviously, once you do it and you want to kind of, I don't know, do something and maybe just go take a look at a few values and stuff like that, you can do that, and definitely turn this calculation off. Do not let this calculation stay in the model. All right. Next question. A lot of people ask me, I don't know what question is that. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th question. I think we'll finish in 1 hour. So cool. So again, a lot of people ask me is that, hey, I have multiple dates in my sales data, and how do I actually track or do calculations against those dates? So I'll give you a practical scenario, and then you'll understand. So if you just take a look at your sales data, in the sales data, I have when the product was sold. After you sell it, when does the product become due? And then the other column is that when are you actually shipping that product? So I'm interested in actually taking a look at 3 calculations. The first calculation is that what is my total sales? The second calculation, what is my sales which has become due as per the due date column? And the third calculation is that what is my total shipped sales? That how much of actual shipped value is there in my that I have actually done. So the way to solve this problem is to actually create multiple relationships to the calendar table. So let's just do that. So I'm actually going to come to the sales table here, and I'll actually right now only the order date has been linked to the calendar table. You can see that. And I'm actually going to link the other 2 dates also to the calendar table. So I'll just go link the due date as well. And I'll also link the ship date as well to the calendar date. Just test it out if that is correct. Due date is correct. And that's the order date. That's correct. Ship date is correct. Okay. Now, you can see that our first relationship was a hard line, and the second 2 were dotted. They are dotted actually. This simply means that this is an inactive relationship. Why? Because the calendar table will get confused if you give calendar table 3 ways to travel to the sales table. I mean, if all of these 3 relationships are active, then the calendar table would not know, hey, which path should I follow and go and filter my sales table. So these 2 are inactive relationships. But guess what? You can actually make these relationships active by a formula called user relationship. The formula that I'm going to write is going to be very, very simple. So just take a look. So let's just calculate my total sales shipped. Let's just say total sales due first of all, and I'm just going to say calculate, and I'm just going to say I still want to calculate total sales, but I do not want to calculate total sales by the order date when they were ordered. I want to calculate total sales by when they were due, so as per the due date. And remember that relationship is by default inactive in the model that we have just created. So I'll have to activate that relationship manually using a formula in DAX. So that formula is called user relationship. User relationship. The first part is the one side of the relationship, which is the calendar date. The second part is the many side of the relationship, which is your order date. Oh, sorry, due date. All right, that's what you do. And this formula is going to give you an error in case you haven't established the inactive relationship. So this is actually going to give you an error. So I commit to that, I press enter, and this is it. That's it. Now what I'm taking a look at is all the sales that were actually shipped. If I actually go back to my Excel and let's take a look at this value here. So 2001, the month of July is 259. Let's just go validate that number. So if I actually come here, apply filters on my Excel, which is where also the data is coming from, and on the order date, on the due date column, I apply a July 2001 filter. So I just write July, and I just maybe filter for 2001 only, and I just get only July 2001, which is the filter on the due date. And if I now take a total of the amount column, it should actually match. And that's the number that it matches correctly. So 259 actually matches correctly with that number that we have actually got. So that's the way you actually solve that problem. Let's just also create that other measure that we were talking about, which is the total sales shipped. So total sales shipped, and I'm just going to say calculate total sales, user relationship, calendar date, one side of the relationship, and the ship date, which is the many side, close that, enter. And I'm just going to drag that formula to my pivot, and this works absolutely fine. So in case you want to validate that, you can just go apply the filters, and this will be all fine. All right, let's just move ahead. So a lot of times you're trying to calculate the previous year sales value, and the totals are not correct because you really want to compare apples to apples. So let me just explain to you. So I'm sure that if you have done some bit of DAX, you certainly would have done calculations like time intelligence calculations, and which is where you have done calculate the sales of the last year. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to write a measure called sales last year. And I'm going to say calculate my total sales, but I will push the period to the previous year. So same period last year of the calendar date, close the bracket, press enter. And now if I kind of drag that calculation to my pivot table, what I get to see here is the sales of July of 2001 is shown against sales of July against 2002. So this is actually showing me the sales of last year. The current year is 500. The last year was 473. The current year is 546. The last year was 506. So on and so forth. Now this is all good. Now the problem happens mostly at the total level. So let's just go down at the bottom. So here, if you take a look, in 2004, we have just done the sales until the month of July, and we haven't done the sales beyond July. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to also take a look at the last year's sales only until July. And the August numbers should not appear. August, September, October, November, December, they should not appear. That is problem number one. Problem number two is that at the total level, it's actually showing me the entire sales of the last year. So you can see that 97,91,060 was the entire sales of the last year. Now, when I'm trying to compare this number, which is 97, I should only be able to compare it against the number of months that are there in the current year. So if my current year is telling me that the data is only until July, so the last year total should only also be until July. And this grand total number doesn't make any sense, so I just want to have it removed. So we have to do three modifications to our calculation. First is that I do not really want to see these numbers. That is one. Second is that this total should only be done for the number of months which are actually present in the current year, so that I can actually compare apples to apples. And finally, I do not really want to see the grand total here. So let's just kind of modify the formula and just get this going. Where is that? Total sales last year. Okay. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write a simple if, and I'm just going to write has one value. So if has one value, calendar month, that means if I'm working at the month level, then this calculation is fine. But if I'm not working at the month level, then this calculation is not fine. So I press enter, and sorry, this is working absolutely fine. So you can see that the total is not appearing at all. I certainly want to see the total. I want to see the total, but it's not appearing at all. So I will just modify the calculation. But the other thing that I want to do is that I only want to do this calculation if the total sales is present. If the total sales is there, then I want to do this calculation. If it's not there, I do not want to do this calculation. So I'm going to say equals to if my total sales is not equal to blank, then actually do this calculation. Otherwise, do not do this calculation. That means do not find the last year number if the current year number is not there. So press enter, and you can see that I only get the data until July, and that's working fine. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to kind of have a total here, which only belongs to the specific number of months that I have it in the current year. That's what I would like to do. So what I'm going to do is over here in the return false part, I will start writing something. And this is the part where I kind of trigger my totals right here. So you can see that I get to see my totals right here. So I'm just working only at the total level, not at the individual month level. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this very formula that I have because I would need it. But this formula is going to be done with a bit of twist. Okay, and I'm just going to maybe write some dates between here. That means that I do not really want to find the sales of the entire last year. I actually want to find the sales of the last year for only those months which are there in the current year. So I will write the formula called dates between. It asks me where are your calendar date column. That's the calendar date column. Then, sorry, okay. Then it says, hey, what is your start date? So my start date is obviously at the start of the year. So I'm just going to say, but it's not the start of the current year, the start of the last year actually. So I'm just going to say, hey, find the minimum date in the calendar and take that date to the previous year at the start of the year. So the minimum date of the calendar is going to be the first. And if you just take that date to the last year, you will get the first again, but for the last year. So that's point number one. Now, in point number two, I'll say that, hey, when should the calendar end? The calendar should end at the month where you are ending in the current year, but that month should actually belong to the last year. So instead of just saying min, first of all, I'll say max. And I will not take a look at the calendar table. I'll actually take a look at the sales orders, sales order date. That means go take a look at the order date and what is the maximum order date that you have in the current year. And you take that date, and of course, you write an EO month. The reason why I'm writing an EO month and not an E date is because you may not have the entire data for the month. And if you do not have the entire data for the month, I still want to kind of go ahead and take a look at the last date of the month. So that's what I'm doing. That's it. That's my formula. Close that bracket and close that bracket. Press enter. Let's just see what we get. That's the number that we get. And it seems correct. So if I actually total all these numbers right from Jan until July, and I shall get the correct number here. So this is actually correct. But now it's actually also showing me the grand total, which I do not really want to see. So I will come here and I will kind of modify the grand total. So I want to say that, where should I write the other if? So if the has one value of the calendar year this time, so if the year has one value, then only do this calculation at the year level, not at the grand total level. So press enter and this should actually go away. All right, gone. And you can see that the grand totals are gone, and that's my calculation. So I actually ended up fixing three things here. The first thing that I actually fixed was that do not show me the individual months in case the sale hasn't happened in the current year. One fix. The second fix was apples to apples comparison against the year level totals. And the third thing was that I do not really want to see the grand totals, which has got no meaning. So those three things fixed. All right, let's just move ahead. Trick number 9. For some visualization purposes, people ask me that, hey, can I maybe select a measure using a slicer? That means in a slicer, I should have the ability to see which measure do I want, and I should be able to select that measure using a slicer. Certainly, you can actually do that. And the way to do that is that you will first of all have to build a slicer and write all the measure names there. So that's our first step. Let's just get that done first. I'm sure you know it already, but slicers can only be created on a column of a table. So if you don't have a table and you don't have a column, you would not be able to build a slicer. And I'm going to actually make a pseudo table, like a dummy, disconnected, artificial table, which is going to be on the side. And that is going to be only meant for the purpose of creating a slicer. So let's just take a look at that first. So I'm just going to maybe come here and from the table tools, I will just create a new table. And let's just call this as my, I don't know, maybe slicer table. And I'm going to use the data table function to create a table. And what I will do is, or let's just maybe not use that. Let's just maybe just directly create the table. So I will say that the first value is total sales. And the second value is total shipped sales, not sales. Okay, and the third value is total sales due. I don't know. I'm hoping that that's the names that I have given to my measures. And this will actually give me a small table right here. So let's just see what is the name of the measure that I have actually given. So the name of the measure is total sales due and total sales shipped and total sales. And let me just go correct that. So total sales, sales shipped and total sales due. Okay, that's fine. All right. So actually, if you actually surround anything with a curly bracket, it actually becomes a table. It's a very smart way of creating small tables in case you want to do that. All right. So that's a table. And on this table, on this column, I can actually build a slicer. So I'll just come here in the visualizations. I'll actually pick up a slicer. And I'll just maybe go pick up the value column from the thing. And that's my slicer. All right. And that's the slicer. All right. Now I'm just going to create a small pivot table. So let's just copy something. Just going to copy this pivot table. Keep this on the side here. I don't know. Okay. And I'll actually go back to the measure right here, paste that right here. And I will actually delete. Okay. Now here is what should happen. So when I actually click on total sales, I should get to see total sales here. When I actually click on total sales due, I actually should see the total sales due. And when I click on total sales shipped, I should actually see the third number here. So depending upon the slicer selection, I should get to see that particular number in the pivot table. So for that, I actually have to build a measure that actually captures the value. So as of now, I'm actually clicking on the slicer and there's nothing happening in Power BI. So I actually have to capture this value, whatever the user is selecting in the slicer. So let's just create a measure directly. So I'm just going to maybe say calculation. And I'm just going to say, create a variable and say that selected value or value in slicer, which is nothing but your selected value of the slicer table value column, and the alternate result is a blank. So blank. All right. And let's just kind of do a return here. And I'll say value in slicer. Press enter. Let's just see what do we get. So I drag it here. And you can see that I am actually getting total sales due, and total sales shipped. So this is working absolutely fine. But I do not want to have a text here. I actually want to see the number which belongs to total sales due and stuff. So now that we have the text, we can actually refer that to the calculation. So let's just go take a look at that, which is where our calculation. And I'm just going to use the switch function here. And in the switch function, I'll do something like true. So switch true. That means go take a look when the result becomes true. And I'm going to say that I'm going to write a series of conditions here. So value in slicer, if the value in slicer is equals to total sales, then I'd like to kind of present total sales. Let's just have it in the same row. The next condition is if the value in the slicer is total sales shipped, then I'd like to have the total sales shipped. And then the third condition is that if this is total sales due, make sure that whatever you're writing as a text here exactly matches the values that you have written here. Otherwise, this will not work. And this is total sales due. If the user has actually selected nothing, then it actually should show me a blank here. And that's the calculation. I press enter, and hopefully this should actually start to work. Okay, so let's just go take a look. So I say total sales, and I get to see total sales value, and I get to see total sales due, and I get to see total sales shipped, and that's working. So that's how you kind of build like a slicer to be able to select any measure that you actually want to display in the calculation. Now, the only thing which is missing out here, or which is sort of incomplete, is the header the header should not be calculation. It should actually be the value that you're actually selecting here. So you can actually create a sort of a card and place it on top of this, which is also be driven by the same logic, and you can actually do that. What I have actually done, if you actually want to see that in action, is that you can actually go click on this link and then just take a look at the work that I've done here, and you'll understand that how actually can you also create a little patch of text that fits in on top of this to be able to give you the correct name of the header. So it's like a patch, small text box that I create and put it right on the top of this, and this actually works fine. All right, last one. I think we are above 1 hour mark, but this is the last one. Wouldn't take too much of time. You're gonna have fun with this. A lot of times people would like to format the way the number looks on the screen, and there is nothing better than the format function to do that. So I'm gonna give you like a few tricks. It'll just be done in about a minute or so. So let's just say format sales. And I will just mention the format function, and the value is going to be a hard-coded value. Here you can also write a measure in case you want to. So I'll just write a hard-coded value. And in the format, a lot of times you will want to see the number in commas, in decimals, and stuff like that. And I will highly recommend that you not use this format function because it actually converts it into a text. You should actually use these formatting tools on the top. But in case you are using this format function in a row context somewhere and things like that, then it's going to be extremely helpful to format the value in a very, very specific way. Anyways, take a look. So let's just say that I would like to format this in a comma separated format. So I can actually do something like a hash comma 0, and this will actually format the 1000 separated by commas. And if I just kind of create a card here, and you will see that you get a little comma here. You can also add a little decimal after that. You can also add a little decimal after that to convert this into decimal places, and you will have a decimal here. Now, the interesting part is that if you have actually taken a look at custom formatting in Excel, custom formatting in Excel actually follows this positive, negative, 0, and text. So the 4 parts of custom formatting in Excel. It's the same thing here in the format function as well. So what you do here is something like you just get to the negative number. So let's just say that this is a negative number. And I will just provide a semicolon. So the part before the semicolon is to format the positive number. The part after the semicolon is to format the negative number. If I write another semicolon, I'm formatting a 0. If I write another semicolon, I'm formatting a text. So that's how it works. And that's how it also works in Excel. So let's just say that the number becomes minus 1000. And the minus 1000, I'd like to include that in like a bracket, like a parenthesis here. And now if I just kind of confirm the formula, you will see that actually 1000 shows without a comma because I did not mention that. And it's actually showing up in the brackets right here. Now, this is all cool, but what you can actually do is pretty interesting things. So if I just go open up my web browser, and if I just maybe go grab a couple of emojis here, don't overload it. It just looks very dirty on the screen, but emoji media. And let's just go grab a tick mark. And let's just get this check mark here and copy that check mark. Now I'm going to say that if the number is a positive number, I actually want to show that in a comma separated format, but it should also show me a little tick. But if that number is a negative number, I actually want to show that in, sorry, I actually want to show, one second, what's happening? Okay, I actually want to show that with a cross sign. So I'm just going to get the cross as well. That's the cross mark. And come back here and paste that right here. Now, if I commit to that, you can see that it not only kind of has that brackets, but it also has that cross sign here. But if that number actually becomes a positive number, it actually gives you that tick mark sign. So these are little tricks that you can actually play with the format function. In the format function, you can also actually play with booleans. Boolean simply means a yes or a no, 1 and a 0, true and false, that sort of stuff. So you can also write like a boolean here, something like yes and no, yes, no. And let's just see if that works. Yeah, that works. So the first part is going to be the true value, which is the yes value, and the second part is going to be the no value, which is the false value, and it works. So if the number is actually 0, it is going to give you a no, or the false part. If the number is anything other than a 0, maybe a 1, it'll actually give you the true part. So you can actually make use of that as well. So there are a couple of things. I think there's a yes and no, there is a true and false, there is an on and off. So these are pretty helpful whenever you're trying to do maybe some visualization tactic and you want to display on and off, that sort of stuff in your DAX calculations. These are pretty helpful. And again, I have a link here, and you can actually go through this link and just take a look at a whole lot of syntaxes that I've written on the blog, and this will actually help you out. I'm actually going to save this model, and you can actually download this model from the same path that you have got to download the data and the blank model, and you can actually download this model on which I have actually worked on. All right, those were the 10 tricks actually that I wanted to speak about, or the 10 DAX problems that a lot of people face while doing their calculations. Over to you guys. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any one of them. Let's just see if I am able to answer your questions or not.
Chandeep ji, as of now, there are no questions.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you so much. That was indeed an insightful session, and I'm sure the participants enjoyed it as well. So on behalf of Excel and Excel, I thank you so much for taking out your time and sharing your wisdom with our audience.
Thank you.
I also thank the audience for their participation and support. We have an announcement to make for the audience. So Excel in Excel is coming up with a hand-picked online courses conducted by professionals curated on a gamut of subjects, Excel to Tally and business analyst to Power BI. So upskill yourselves for the real world. The courses are as follows. The first one is the robotic process automation, which starts on 21st of September 2020, instructed by Mr. Gopinath. The second is the business analyst, again starting from 21st of September, instructed by Mr. Rajkumar. And the third is data analytics using Power BI, starting on 28th of September, instructed by CA S. Ratnagiri. So if you want to register, the link is there in the description. Please do register. And our upcoming Fresh Talks are on HR Analytics using Power BI by Mr. S. Bhanukumar on 25th of September, that is Friday, from 6 p.m. onwards, followed by another session on creating income statements, P&L using Power BI by Mark Walter on 3rd of October. And another session on 9 presentation hacks with PowerPoint by Gitesh Bajaj on 9th of October from 4:30 onwards. So thank you so much. If you like the session, give it a thumbs up and do subscribe to our channels for more Fresh Talks. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you so much. Hello. So left, I guess.
Yes, it seems it's left. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think Chandeep sir was trying to say something. Sandeep sir.